Let's begin with something simple, something we always carry with us, our breath. If you're watching this video, maybe you're going through a phase in life where your heart isn't as at ease as it used to be. Maybe you've turned 50 or even 70. And you know, at this age, our minds don't chase after little things like they did when we were younger, but instead they tend to drift into memories, into worry, or into loneliness. I've sat with many people just like you, in a meditation hall in California. Many of them, kind elders, have told me, "Teacher, I'm not young anymore. All I want is peace in my heart. But my mind keeps stirring like waves that won't settle." And I tell them something very simple. Come back to your breath. Sounds easy, right? But in my experience, that's the first doorway, the soft, patient doorway back to yourself. Let me ask you to picture this. You're sitting in a quiet room. Outside, there's the sound of wind and birds. No phone, no appointments, no one calling your name. You place your hand on your belly. You feel the breath coming in like a cool breeze. And as you breathe out, you feel the tension melting away, like a stream washing away debris. That is meditation. No candles needed, no bells, just mindfulness, your full presence in each breath. One elderly Buddhist friend of mine lost his partner last year, after 42 years together. He told me, "I didn't want to eat. I couldn't sleep, but I still heard your words. Just breathe." So every day he sat for 10 minutes, eyes closed, breathing slowly. After a month, he came back, took my hand, and said, "I don't cry every morning anymore. I feel more at peace. Not because someone else did it for me, but because I came back to myself." Have you ever felt that way? Like your heart is a muddy pond, stirred up, unclear, and you don't know how to make it still again? Modern science tells us something similar. The breath is the bridge between body and mind. When we regulate the breath, we calm the nervous system. We lower cortisol, the stress hormone. Many psychologists I've worked with say, if they had to choose just one simple technique for reducing anxiety, it would be this: return to the breath. But in the Dharma, in the Buddha's teachings, it goes even deeper. The breath doesn't just calm us, it brings us back to the present, and the present, this very moment, is the only place where life truly happens. There's nothing left to do in the past except regret. There's nothing real yet in the future, only fear. But this moment, where you're sitting, listening, breathing, that's what's truly here. Dharma doesn't ask you to chase perfection. It simply invites you to stop and breathe. Maybe you woke up this morning with sadness, or with aches in your body. Maybe you feel lost in a world of fast-moving technology. But try this just 5 minutes. Turn off the TV, place your hand on your belly, close your eyes, and count your breaths, each inhale, each exhale. Don't try to fix anything. Don't try to achieve anything. Just breathe, as if you're coming home to an old house where everything has been quietly waiting for your return. Young people go searching for freedom out there, but for us, those of us a little older, we begin to search for peace within, and the breath is the first doorway into that inner home. I know sometimes it feels like you're not making progress, but listen, meditation isn't about instant results. It's about patience, like rain soaking into dry earth. Today you sit for 5 minutes, next week 10, and slowly your mind will begin to soften, like a lake becoming still. And when that happens, you won't have to try to control your thoughts anymore, because your mind will have learned how to rest. From one breath, then two, then thousands of breaths, your life can begin to change. That's how I've lived for over 40 years. And that's what I want to share with you today. Start with the breath. Let your mind come home. Because in each breath, there is the gentle light of the Dharma, quietly waiting for you to rediscover it. Part 2. Looking deeply at the consequences. You know, before we can truly let go of something, we have to be willing to look at where it's taking us. When I was still a young monk, I once asked my teacher, "Master, how do I know whether I should hold on to a thought or let it go?" He sat in silence for a moment, then gently replied with a question of his own. Are you willing to look at where that thought is leading? Have you ever asked yourself that? Sometimes we let a negative thought slip into our minds, a little anger, a little jealousy, or a vague sadness. We don't stop it. We just let it grow quietly. And before we know it, that thought becomes a word that hurts someone, or an action we deeply regret. One elderly patient once shared with me, "I don't know why I said that to my daughter. I was just a little angry. But that little anger cost me 2 years of silence between us." You see, even a small thought can lead to big consequences. In Buddhist teachings, this is called vipaka, the result of karma. Every thought is a seed, and if we water it every day by repeating it over and over, it eventually grows into an action. But here's the beautiful part. If we're mindful, truly mindful, we can see the outcome before it happens. An angry thought, if left unexamined, can turn into a harsh word. But if we pause, if we look deeply at where it's headed, we can choose not to go down that path. I often tell older students I guide in meditation, at our age, we don't need to move fast anymore. We just need to slow down enough to really see what's happening inside. So a thought arises. We pause. And we ask ourselves, if I follow this thought, where will it take me? Will it bring me peace? Or will it create more unease? This isn't about overthinking. It's simple, everyday awareness, like a gardener knowing exactly which plant they're about to water. Modern science supports this too. Mindfulness research shows that when we train ourselves to pause and observe our thoughts, our brain activates the part responsible for rational thinking instead of emotional reactivity. In other words, you stop reacting and start responding with clarity. One of my elderly students, he's in his 70s now, once sighed and said, "If only I had learned this sooner, maybe I wouldn't have let anger ruin so many good years." But I told him what I'll tell you now. It's never too late. If today you can pause and look at a thought, before it turns into a word or an action, you've already planted a new seed, the seed of wisdom and compassion. And that is living in alignment with the Dharma. You don't always need to meditate for an hour. Sometimes all it takes is 1 second of mindfulness, just enough time to ask, if I follow this thought, will it really make me happy? I hope you keep that question close, like a quiet friend walking beside you. And the next time anger or fear starts to rise, just stop, look at it, breathe, and ask, what might happen if I choose not to feed this anymore? You have the power to choose what you plant in the garden of your mind. And peace, true peace, begins with that choice. Part 3. Withdrawing attention, the art of redirecting the mind. Let me ask you something first. Have you ever had a thought that just kept looping in your head? Maybe it was a past conversation, a comment that hurt, or a decision you keep wishing you had made differently. Those thoughts can feel like a broken record, spinning over and over, leaving you drained, sleepless, and sometimes like you're no longer in control. One of my older students, Eleanor, shared something during a Saturday morning meditation. Teacher, I'm not even sad about it anymore, but I still can't stop thinking about it. And I told Eleanor what I want to share with you now. When you can't stop thinking, don't fight the thought. Just gently redirect your attention. Picture this. Your mind is like a small child crying over a broken toy. If you try to reason, explain, or scold it, it just cries louder. But if you offer the child a new toy, or take them outside to watch the flowers and listen to the birds, soon enough they forget the tears. The mind works the same way. When a negative thought feels too strong, you don't have to confront it head on. Just withdraw your attention. It's like staring at a stain on the wall. The more you look, the bigger it seems. But if you turn away, step outside, suddenly the whole sky opens up before you. That's what the Dharma teaches us. We don't always have to win the battle inside. Sometimes we simply learn how to steer the mind gently from darkness toward light. So, how do we do that? Keep it simple. When a negative thought arises, don't react. Notice it, and then shift your attention towards something wholesome. Maybe that means counting your breath, watching the leaves change color outside your window, thinking of your grandchild's joyful face, or listening to your favorite meditation music. Just one small act, enough to help your mind step into a new space. Another student of mine, Joseph, he's in his 80s, once said, "Teacher, I can't sit for long meditations, but when my mind gets noisy, I place my hand on my chest and quietly hum an old song, and somehow I feel my heart settle." You see, redirecting the mind doesn't have to be mystical or grand. It just takes a pause and a new direction. Have you ever been lost in the forest? If you just stand there panicking, you'll tire yourself out. But if you stop, turn toward the light, you might just find your way out. The same is true with the mind. You don't always need to defeat your thoughts. Sometimes you just need to turn gently and walk a different path. And once you learn to do that, those heavy thoughts, worry, regret, fear, start to lose their grip, not because you fought them, but because you stopped feeding them with your attention. That's the quiet wisdom of the Dharma. No clinging, no resistance, just a gentle return to what nourishes your heart. I invite you to try this tonight. As you lie down, if an old thought returns, notice it. Then bring your mind back to your breath, or to the face of someone you love, or simply smile to yourself, knowing you are learning to steer your little boat toward calmer waters. And you'll realize you don't have to forget, you don't have to win. You only need to know when to let go, like the sun, quietly knowing when it's time to set. Part 4. Uprooting the cause, keeping the waters of the mind clear. Let me tell you a story from one of our meditation retreats for seniors in Northern California. One morning, after a sitting session, an elderly student raised her hand and asked, "Teacher, why is it that every time I sit down to meditate, my mind goes straight back to the past? I feel exhausted, like I've lost control." I smiled and gently asked her, "Have you noticed what usually happens right before those thoughts come up?" She paused for a while, then quietly nodded. "Usually after I look through old photo albums or after I talk to my younger sister on the phone." And I said, "That's the root. That's the spring where the stream begins." You see, most of the time we're just dealing with the aftermath, like someone mopping up spilled water without realizing the faucet is still running. But the Dharma teaches us something deeper. Don't just mop, turn off the tap. Negative thoughts don't just show up out of nowhere. They have causes, conditions. There are situations, emotions, and habits, fertile soil where unwholesome seeds can sprout. Have you noticed how after staying up late watching the news, you wake up feeling heavy the next day? Or how a certain song from the past can stir up old memories and send your mind spiraling? That is the root. That's where the thought begins. And once you see that clearly, you can choose to stop watering those seeds. One of my students, Linda, she's in her 60s, used to struggle with anxiety. After a few months of mindful practice, she told me something simple but profound. "Teacher, I notice that every time I scroll through social media late at night, my mind spins. Now, I just read a gentle meditation book before bed, and I sleep much better." That's not magic. That's wisdom, recognizing the root and choosing not to feed what makes the heart restless. Imagine your mind as a garden. Every time you interact with something, a sound, an image, a memory, you're planting a seed. If you're not aware, you might be planting weeds, seeds of anxiety, resentment, or jealousy. But when you live with mindfulness, you begin to choose. You water compassion. You nourish peace. You protect clarity. That's spiritual freedom. No one can force you to think anything. But if you're not awake, your thoughts will be shaped by what you expose yourself to. And if you are awake, you can choose not to plant what brings pain. Dharma doesn't teach us to avoid life, it teaches us to live with intention. And living with intention begins with recognizing what unsettles the heart, becoming aware of the people, habits, or situations that muddy your waters, and gently but firmly learning to close the tap. I'm not asking you to isolate yourself. I'm inviting you to live like a mindful gatekeeper, someone who chooses carefully what enters the home of your heart. You deserve a peaceful inner world, and you have the right to choose what you allow in. Remember this ancient teaching from the sutras. What is not planted will not grow. What is not fed will not thrive. So ask yourself, what is the root of your everyday restlessness? And begin there, gently, compassionately, but firmly. Because when the spring of your heart is clear, every river inside you flows clear as well. Part 5. Stopping it with willpower, the strength of the mind. Let's be honest. Sometimes all the gentle ways don't seem to work anymore. You've tried breathing, You've reflected on the consequences. You've withdrawn your attention, avoided the triggers, and still your mind won't let go. It spins and stirs like a storm in the night, and that's when you need inner strength, not to fight the mind, but to draw a clear line with yourself. One student of mine, George, he's 74 now, once shared something during a session. Teacher, there are nights I sit there knowing my thoughts are wrong. I know I'm stuck in blame, in bitterness. My head understands it's pointless, but my heart keeps sinking in. I was quiet for a moment. Then I asked him, have you ever spoken firmly to your own mind, out loud? George looked surprised, and I said, not with anger, but with clarity. When your mind is pulling you down the wrong path, sit up straight, take a deep breath, and say, stop. Mind, this does not lead to peace. It sounds simple, but this is an actual method taught in the Dharma called mind restraining mind. It means using your own willpower, wisdom, and compassion to stop yourself clearly and decisively. Because, you know what? Sometimes you don't need more analysis. You don't need to keep asking why this thought is here. You just need to stop. Like a father who sees his child crying not from hunger, not from pain, but because they want something they shouldn't have. He doesn't yell, but he holds the boundary calmly and lovingly. He puts a hand on the child's shoulder and says, I love you, but this isn't good. We're not going any further. With your own mind, you need to do the same. Sometimes compassion means being firm. It means telling yourself clearly and lovingly, mind, that's enough. I choose peace. This strength doesn't come from force or tension. It comes from inner stability, built through years of meditation, through life experience, and through the courage to face yourself without flinching. And if you're in your 60s or 70s, I believe that strength is already within you. You may not have named it yet, but you've lived through loss. You've made it through illness, heartbreak, chaos, and change. And yet, you're still here. You're still breathing. You're still quiet enough to listen. That is power. And you can use that power to protect yourself from thoughts that cause suffering. Just one pause, one sentence spoken from within. No, I will not follow that path today. That moment could be the beginning of a more peaceful life from the inside out. The Dharma is not just a gentle candle. It's also a pillar of strength. And you who've lived nearly a whole lifetime, you have the right to say, I won't let the past drag me down anymore. I won't let these thoughts run my life. Try this today. When a harmful thought arises, sit tall, breathe deep, and from the depths of your heart, speak to your mind like an old friend. Thank you, but I don't need that anymore. Then let go. And you'll see, when you stand up for your peace, your mind will start to listen. Part 6, Opening the Heart. Loving kindness meditation and the art of letting go. Let me ask you something gentle but honest. Have you ever felt your heart grow heavy because of something someone did to you? Maybe it was a family member, an old friend, or maybe it was you, still carrying the weight of a past mistake. The human mind has a strange habit. It clings tightly to what hurt us, as if we can't let go unless we get something back first. But here's the truth. When you hold on to anger, you're punishing yourself every single day. One of my elder students, Maria, a warm, kind woman in her 60s, shared during a quiet afternoon meditation. "Teacher, I've forgiven my ex-husband, but my heart still feels tight." I gently asked her, "Maria, have you ever sent him loving kindness?" She paused, then softly shook her head. You see, loving kindness isn't just saying, "I forgive you." It's about untying the knots in your own heart. In the Buddhist tradition, this practice is called metta bhavana, the cultivation of loving kindness. It's an ancient form of meditation where you consciously send warmth and compassion to yourself, to those you love, to strangers, and even to the people who've hurt you. It might sound impossible, and to be honest, at first, it can be. But every time you begin with the simple intention, "May that person be at peace," you're gently pulling out a thorn that's been lodged in your heart for far too long. I've seen elderly men and women, after decades of resentment toward children, neighbors, or old friends, sit silently in the meditation hall, palms together, whispering, "I forgive you. I wish you happiness." And then they cry. But not the kind of tears that come from pain, tears of release, of something old finally loosening. Modern science supports this too. People who regularly practice loving-kindness meditation show better emotional recovery, lower blood pressure, and increased serotonin, the chemical that fosters peace and well-being. But for me, the true miracle is this: when you send love to the one who hurt you, they no longer live rent-free in your mind. You reclaim your inner space, not with power, but with compassion. Some people ask me, "But teacher, what if they never change?" And I smile. Loving kindness isn't meant to change others. It's meant to set you free from hatred. So tonight, I invite you to try something simple. Before you sleep, sit quietly for just 5 minutes. Breathe in, breathe out, and whisper to yourself, "May I be at peace. May the person I'm thinking about also find peace." You don't have to believe it yet, but if you do it every day, one day something will shift. Your heart will feel lighter. The Dharma never asks you to become a saint. It only asks you to open your heart a little more each day. And in those small acts of compassion, you'll begin to find yourself again. You'll begin to soften. And soon you'll see peace doesn't come from revenge. It comes from choosing not to carry the past any longer. Part 7. Mental Precepts, Forging the Mind Like Tempered Steel. Let me say this straight from the heart. Getting older doesn't mean giving up. It means growing stronger inside. Someone once told me during a tea break, "Teacher, at this age, I just want to let things be. No more pressure. Just live lightly." I smiled and nodded. But then I gently asked, "Are you sure letting go means peace? Or is it what's keeping you up at night?" You see, when we're young, we often think freedom means doing whatever we want. But as we age, if we've lived and reflected enough, we start to understand true freedom is not being dragged around by our own mind. And to get there, we need something that may sound strict, but is actually full of compassion. Mental discipline, or in the language of the Dharma, precepts. Not rules meant to punish, but boundaries that protect the peace we've worked so hard to build. I remember one elder, a retired Army officer, who used to lash out at his family after retirement. He felt invisible, left behind. But after a few weeks of meditation, he told me during a quiet walk, "Teacher, now every time I feel myself about to snap, I put my hand on my chest and say, 'I will not say something that causes harm.'" That was his own personal precept, and he smiled as he added, "Since I started doing that, I like myself more." That's what I want to offer you today. You don't have to live with inner discipline. But if you love yourself, if you treasure your peace, then maybe it's time to set a few clear intentions for your mind. Not harsh rules, just gentle boundaries like, "I won't stay angry for more than 5 minutes. I won't speak ill of others, even silently in my thoughts. I won't carry the past into my sleep." Simple, quiet, but firm. Because if we don't set these boundaries, our mind becomes unruly. And when the mind is wild, we're the first to suffer. In the Dharma, precepts aren't about controlling others. They're about guarding our inner sanctuary. Like levees holding back floodwaters, like fences protecting a garden. Because no matter how many good seeds you plant, all it takes is one surge of anger, one moment of jealousy, and the flood washes it all away. I know many of us at this age once lived recklessly, rebelliously, and that's okay. But maybe that's exactly why we now understand the value of discipline. Not the discipline forced on us, but the one we choose for ourselves, out of self-respect. You can write your own personal precepts. No one needs to see them, but every morning read them. And every evening gently ask yourself, did I stay true to myself today? One day of keeping your word builds strength. 1 month builds a stable foundation. 1 year, and your heart becomes a fortress of peace. Because Dharma is not just about healing. It's also about building. And every strong home needs a solid foundation. So here's my message to you at this beautiful, ripened stage of life. You can begin again. Not to become someone else, but to become the very best version of who you already are. In these final, most precious years, why not live with the kind of dignity and clarity that your younger self never knew was possible? Part 8. The breath. Returning to right now. Let me take you somewhere quiet for a moment. Not a place outside, but right here where you are. Let's come back home, to the breath. I once asked an old meditation master, a man who had lived through 2 wars, lost his wife and children, and spent 30 years practicing deep in the forest, "Master, how did you get through all that pain?" He looked at me with calm eyes, then softly replied, "I sat still, and I breathed." It sounded almost too simple, but you know what? In a Dharma, breath isn't just air moving in and out of the lungs. It's the thread that reconnects body and mind. The doorway into reality, the one key that can lead us out of the fog of memory, anxiety, and exhaustion. The breath is always there, quiet, faithful, steady, Whether you're in joy or sorrow, whether you're in a hospital, on your porch, or alone in a small room. But very few of us live with our breath. Most of us live in the past, or in what hasn't happened yet, and that's how we lose the present. One of my elder students, her name's Helen, and she's 82, once shared something honest with me. All my life, I just wished for one quiet afternoon where I could sit and not think about anything. But I've never been able to do it. I gently invited her to try something. Just sit. Just breathe. Just notice the subtle movement in her body. No effort, no fixing, just being. A week later, she returned with brighter eyes and a gentler voice. She smiled and said, "I had my first afternoon like that. It was light, like tea steam, but I felt alive." You see, peace isn't far away. It lives in the breath. When you breathe in, you return to your body. When you breathe out, your mind returns to the present. And little by little, you stop being swept away by invisible waves. At the monastery, I often remind older practitioners, breathe as if you are gently holding yourself. No judgment, no rush, just presence. Because when you've lived most of your life already, the goal isn't to add more. It's to gently let go of what no longer serves you. And the breath, that loyal friend, is always there to remind you. This moment, this place, this is enough. So right now I invite you. Place a hand over your chest. Close your eyes. Take a slow inhale. A soft exhale. And whisper to yourself, I am here, I am alive, and I am whole in just one breath. The Dharma doesn't ask you to do great things. It only asks you to stop long enough to see what's already here. And sometimes that's all we truly need. One full breath. One quiet pause. One sacred second where your mind comes home. Closing, end of the 8 Practices series. Dear friend, if you've stayed with me through all 8 parts, I believe something inside you has quietly shifted, even if it's as light as a falling flower petal. And sometimes it's the smallest shift that becomes the root of the biggest transformation. I sincerely wish you, a person who has walked through so many seasons of life, will continue the path ahead a little lighter, a little more at ease, and a little deeper in wisdom. Because you deserve to live with a mind that is kind, peaceful, and free. Thank you for walking this path with me. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.